Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about some of the lessons that I have learned training with no equipment. No wrist straps, no knee sleeves, no belts, anything for a while. And this is something I promoted years ago for a while and then got over into all of that, and then I've kind of drifted back over to it. And the thing is, I don't know that I really buy the arguments that if we wrap up all this stuff, that we get better neural drive. And the reason I say that is because you have to be so much tighter and brace so much harder and squeeze so much harder when you don't have any of this equipment, that I just don't think that it's what's really happening as far as the irradiation effect and stuff goes. Because again, in this case, when we train this way, you have to really focus on bracing your core. When you're squatting and deadlifting without a belt, right, and you're really pushing heavy weight or you're pushing hard sets, there's no room for any of that. Like, there is no room for getting loose. There's no room for losing your brace in your core. You have to just stay tighter, right? You have to stay tighter. And obviously we can't lift as much weight, a lot of times. But I don't think that's detracting from the muscles, because here's the thing with some of that. If you have to have the external equipment to lift the weight, we have a problem. And it's the same when we come to something like knee sleeves or wrist sleeves. I'll get to wrist wraps in a minute. When it comes to those things, we know that those things create external leverage, okay? So they create external leverage at the point of greatest mechanical tension on the muscle. You're losing training response. And I want to be very, very clear there. If you are pressing with elbow sleeves, you are losing some of the most beneficial training response. If you are squatting in knee sleeves, you are losing some of the quad stimulus. People have to understand this. You have to understand this point. You are losing some of the beneficial training stimulus purely for the sake of overloading more weight. That more weight is causing less muscle growth because you are losing some of the tension in the lengthened positions, the stretch positions, where we really see the most bang for our buck for muscle growth. It's costing you. It is a form of ego lifting. You are lifting more weight, and you are lifting more weight. Anyone who thinks that they're not lifting more weight with elbow sleeves or knee sleeves, I'm sorry, that's delusional. You are lifting more weight with it. Or you're holding 5 reps in reserve, right? So you're beating up your recovery, but you're losing some of the most beneficial training stimulus. Because if it lets us lift more weight, we're having to utilize more of our energy reserves through those points where we have less tension. All right? You are losing potential growth stimulus for the sake of putting more weight on the bar. That's ego lifting. All right, come back over to the things like the wrist wrap. Something that I learned real quick, okay? Something I learned very, very quickly when I took the wrist wraps off. I have to squeeze the bar super hard. I've got to get that bar set perfect, because before long I'm having my wrist cock back on everything. Then I'm getting wrist pain. I'm finding that in order to get my wrist stacked correctly, I have to be very, very picky about where I grip the bar. If I don't want my wrist to hurt, I am forced to stack. I am forced to squeeze the bar. It's even harder. I always thought, I squeeze the bar hard, but you don't feel it because your wrists are wrapped up. There's a numbness there. No, you're not squeezing the bar as hard as we feel like we are. When you pull those wrist wraps off and you have to keep everything locked in, we're squeezing even harder. All right, that's going to give you more more neural drive. That's going to make sure we recruit more muscle fibers. It forces us to learn to lift better. When we lose these tools, when we lose the belt and we have to squat and deadlift, we have to learn to really and truly engage our core tighter. It's one thing, and I'm talking about novices, I'm talking about when we get some decent strength on the bar. You get some decent weight on the bar. You've built a strength base. You've been training with a belt. When you pull that belt off, if you don't maintain an even tighter brace, you're going to get folded over like a taco. All right, even with weights you could normally do 5 or 6 reps with, you walk it out or you try to lift it without the belt, that first rep, second rep, it forces us to learn to lift better. Same thing, you lose those wrist wraps. It's humbling because all of a sudden, here's what you find. Here's what I found even with losing the wrist straps. You can't lift as much weight. Your wrists are going to hurt if you don't stack it in perfect, if you don't squeeze everything. We learn to lift better. It forces us to. All right, we're losing a lot of these crutches that let us take loads off the muscle in the lengthened positions. We're losing these crutches that let us get away with limp wristing a weight. We lose these crutches that let us get away with letting our abdominal wall get sloppy and loose. Do we need these things? Is it making us worse lifters? I mean, someone who put all the equipment like that back on, belts, wrist straps, everything again, even knee sleeves for a little bit, put all that stuff back on, trained for a few years again that way, and took it all back off. I feel like, based on my experience, it makes us better lifters to lose this stuff. It's harder, but it forces us to do better. And I feel like I'm at a point where, man, I get a better muscle stimulus. My pecs get lit up more. My quads get lit up more. My forearms get worked harder. I think we get a better training response. That's what it feels like. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.